Hi, my name's Kim and I'm one of the professional tutors here at Runshaw College, and I'm going to talk to you today about memory and forgetting and some top tips on how to help your learners retain information. So it's really important, first of all, as teachers, that we're thinking about cognitive learning strategies. So cognition is all about how we process information and how we make sense of it. So ideally, we should be embedding sort of cognitive learning strategies into all our teaching, because that's a really good way of helping learners retain information, keep it in their mind and use it in a constructive way. But first, as teachers, we need to understand cognitive processes ourselves. So this session is going to focus on understanding memory and forgetting and having a look at how we can build strategies into our lessons to hack forgetting. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to this model. Okay, this is the multi-STORE model by Atkinson and Shiffrin. So if you are a psychology teacher, if you've studied psychology at all, you'll be very familiar with this model because it is very much bread and butter of sort of teaching about memory. But I think as teachers, it's really important that we understand this as well. So the idea here is that there's different routes to memory, basically. We're going to look at memory as almost like a journey. So information goes in through the sensory memory. Sensory memory is really short storage for information. Basically anything that is going on around us in a sensory capacity goes into this, and it's almost like a filter. Okay, it filters out anything that's not relevant. Okay. If information is paid attention to, then it will go through to the short-term memory. In the short-term memory, this has got quite a limited capacity, so it's about 30 seconds long, about 7 pieces of information, and we can keep information in here by rehearsing it. Okay, so it's maintenance rehearsal, like, you know, sort of repeating information in your head as if somebody read a phone number out to you. You'd sort of keep saying it in your head. Okay. So the aim of the game is to get the information to long-term memory. So when we're thinking about teaching, ideally what we want is for information to go in, for the students to pay attention to it, for them to process it in their short-term memory, and for it then to be transferred to long-term memory where it should live forever. Okay, so we're thinking about exam revision, retention of information. We want information to be in the long term, but it doesn't always go there. Okay, there's lots and lots of different sort of obstacles on this journey, should we say. So at the sensory level, there's decay. If we're not paying attention to information, it's not going to go in. For short-term memory, it can also decay. So if it's not rehearsed enough, it can decay, or it can be displaced by new information coming in. Okay. It then also can stop on its journey to long-term memory, again, if it's not rehearsed properly. Okay. Once it gets to the long-term memory, it can still be sort of forgotten or lost through a couple of different processes: interference, decay, and retrieval failure. So in this session, what I really want to focus on is these elements of forgetting and how we can almost hack them or thwart them by thinking a little bit more about the methods that we're using within our teaching and learning. So, teachers' role in forgetting. Unfortunately, a lot of sort of forgetting of information that we teach in our lessons is actually down to us and perhaps the way that we're planning our lessons and the way that we're delivering the information. So, as teachers, there are a lot of things that we can do to contribute to this not being retained. Therefore, there's a lot we can do to fix it. But some of the sort of major criminals, major things that we could be doing wrong that are leading to forgetting are not ensuring learners are paying attention. Okay, so this is a big one, but if they're not paying attention, if we don't realize they're not paying attention, that information is never going to get past that sensory memory. It's never going to get past that first point into the short-term memory. Okay. We might include too much content in sessions. Now, this is a bit of a boggle, really, because sometimes there's so much to cover. But when we put too much into a session, or too many short pieces of information, what we actually do is displace other information that they've learned. So let's say we've done something at the start of the lesson. Brilliant. Yeah, they know it. We move on. We move on too quickly. We haven't spent enough time consolidating that information. That sort of information they've learned is pushed out of their short-term memory really quickly. And finally, not returning to and rehearsing information enough. So we might think, yeah, they've learned it, brilliant, done, off. Okay. Rehearsal needs to be more than sort of surface level. We have to rehearse information at a deeper level for it to go into long-term memory. Okay. So for more on retrieval practice strategies, there's a video on here by my colleague Claire that helps you to understand those and gives you some tips for. So, theories of forgetting. We're just going to talk a little bit about these theories. Say we, I, in my little video, and then ways that we can hack them. Okay, so we have got displacement. So displacement, as we've said, is information in the short-term memory is displaced by new incoming information. Interference. Now this one is a pickle, but this is where information in the long-term memory gets mixed up with other existing information. So for example, if you're teaching your students lots of different formulas or theories, you sort of get elements of them combined and mixed up. Okay, decay. Now decay is sort of a biological theory really. When we are creating a new memory, we're actually creating a change in our brain at the neuronal level, at the synaptic level. So this involves a change in the structure, and this doesn't happen instantly. This is something that has to be sort of practiced for the trace of the memory to be solidified. So trace decay is where we haven't practiced a memory enough and it fades. Final one, retrieval failure. So this is where you know, but you just can't remember. And if anyone has ever been to a pub quiz, you'll understand this. You know, sort of like, who was the actor that played Phil Mitchell, and you're just like, oh, I know, I can't find it. And like halfway down through the lesson, you'll be like, Steve McFadden. So, you know, we know that sometimes this happens to us. So how do we hack forgetting? This is the important stuff. How can we take these theories of memory and think about ways that we can thwart them or hack them? So the first one, for retrieval failure, so remember, this is where we just can't remember. Steve McFadden played Phil Mitchell. But this is where we use strategies such as mnemonics to provide a cue for learners. So mnemonics are a really, really good memory device, and it's a way of providing almost like a shortcut. So for example, Roy G. Biv, to remember the colours of the rainbow. The sillier the better, because it sticks in your mind and you remember the actual mnemonic. But what this does is provides a cue. Okay, so if you can remember that theory was those initials, that then provides a cue for you. And it's so much easier to remember something based on a cue than to remember it almost sort of raw, you know, like to be able to pull the information out of your head from nothing. So providing your students with these short, snappy cues can be a real help in reducing retrieval failure. Decay. So decay is where the memory trace has not been practiced enough and it fades over time. So this is where you would like to ensure that you're using or encouraging plenty of repetition and retrieval strategies. So recaps, plenaries, making sure that you're revisiting information little and often so it is constantly being rehearsed and then it doesn't fade in the same way. Providing a nice strong memory trace. So little and often is the key here. Using games to make it fun and memorable then links to retrieval practice as well, retrieval failure. So as I said earlier, a really good video on our YouTube channel about retrieval practice strategies. Displacement, which is where the information is pushed out. We need to try and ensure that new areas of learning are consolidated with an activity before moving on to the next section. So even though sometimes we might have a lot to fit into a session, if we're not spending time consolidating it and encouraging our students to do activities to process it, that information isn't transferred into long-term memory before the new information comes along and pushing it out. Another way to get around displacement is chunking. So chunking is the idea that our memory can fit about 7 to 10 pieces of information at a time. If we break things into chunks, we can actually fit more in our memory. So, for example, formulas and theories, breaking them down into steps rather than trying to give lots of separate pieces of knowledge means that memory can hold, your memory can hold more information. The last one is interference. So interference is where information sort of meshes with other information that's already stored in the long-term memory. So here really it's about organisation. So encouraging your learners to organise notes and the way that they can revise are really the key to sort of hacking interference. This avoids cross-contamination of information. So using colour to represent different theories, making sure that your learners have got notes on separate pages for different theories, for example, can really help them separate that so they don't end up getting sort of enmeshed within their long-term memory. For yourself as a teacher, being clear in your own resources which information fits with each topic or area or concept. So using colour-coded workbooks or being really clear about sort of titles and things like that, and making sure the learners understand that this is a new theory, this one goes with this bit, etc. Okay, so just a few ideas for you there to help you hack forgetting. So some thinking points for you in your own practice. What are you already doing to rehearse information with your learners, and is it meaningful rehearsal? Maintenance rehearsal helps us recall information in the short term, but elaborative rehearsal, which is where we link new knowledge to existing knowledge or provide strategies to get us to really think about the information, is much more effective for long-term recall. So for you, have a think about how you will incorporate more elaborative rehearsal into your future sessions. Thank you for listening today, and have a look at our YouTube videos for more top tips.